Who would think it was a good idea to eat dessert 3 times a day? I know I wouldn't at first glance, but it turns out that that's actually what many Americans are doing every day. That's why I think we need a sugary food and drink tax implemented in our country. All you have to do to justify this reasoning is go read a few labels at the grocery store or just around your house and see the insane amounts of sugar that we are consuming every day in products that you may not even expect. I know firsthand how this has affected me as somebody who's struggled with overindulging on sugary products and feeling the effects of them afterwards. So today we're going to talk about why we need this taxation on sugary foods and products, what the effects of this sugar is doing to our bodies, and what the future is going to look like for us. So Americans, we have this tendency to be in a hurry and look for the grab and go, the quick processed food. And in an article on worldatlas.com, Amber Periona talks about exactly that and how it's the second leading cause of death is obesity behind tobacco use. And these are preventable causes of death. We consume over 120 grams of sugar a day on average. This is more than 10 times the recommended daily intake. So let's talk about what the sugar is doing to our bodies. So our bodies were not made to process this much sugar. And it makes sense because all of the sugar is being added to foods. This is not natural how food comes in its natural form. In an article on healthline.com by Brian Kranz, which I accessed on June 17th, he talks about just what the sugar does to our bodies and the problems that it can cause. It contributes directly to type 2 diabetes, to heart disease, and to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which has actually become the most common reason for liver transplant requests in recent years. And all of these numbers on these diseases have just been going up, in recent years due to our horrible dietary habits in this country. And binging on sugar actually acts very similar to many illicit substances. When it's used in a binging manner, it actually makes neurochemical and behavioral changes in the brain that are very similar to what happens when a drug addict or an alcoholic is using illicit substances, and it gets you hooked, and that's what the sugar companies want, and that's where we're at. Is we have become so dependent on sugar due to its addictive nature. So let's talk about what the future holds for us going forward. We've got growing stress on our healthcare system. It's been ever increasing in the recent years, and we could see just how unfit our healthcare system is as a result of this pandemic. We saw how overwhelmed we were. In an article I read on the West Virginia Health Statistics Center website on June 17th, the author talks about how we spend over $150 billion per year as an economy, and the business sector spends over $13 billion a year, with a large portion of that for businesses coming from, insurance premiums being raised due to a lot more people being unhealthy, obese, having chronic conditions associated with these, with obesity. And there's been a lot of injuries to healthcare workers on the rise. There's been equipment failures and a need for more expensive and costly maintenance to the equipment due to heavier patients, more patients because more people are unhealthy and having to go in the hospital, and just overall costs going up of healthcare, and it becoming ever more inaccessible for your everyday American who doesn't have health insurance. And this is just going to continue to rise, these costs. So as we conclude, let's look back over what we've talked about. So we discussed why taxation on sugary foods is a necessary step for our country to move in a healthier direction. We've talked about the effects that this sugar has on our body and how bad it is for us, and how it contributes to so many chronic conditions. And we've talked about the danger that lies ahead if we don't make changes. Our healthcare system is just not in a position to sustain like this forever. And the path we're on is just going to continue to get worse. So what we can do is educate on what a healthy diet is, and advocate to lawmakers to stop taking money from big sugar companies, and to put laws in place to deter people from these horrible foods, such as a taxation on these products. And these are some resources to get some education and to take some action. Nutrition.gov, healthline.com, actiononsugar.org, and healthyfoodamerica.org.